you again sold it and again worked in industry for 1-2 years, again worked in startup, and then you founded your company. So did you plan this like skips from one industry to another industry?
Not at all. I think this is one of the best parts of life is that as a kid, I think was dreaming too small, right? And then I happened to be lucky to move here to the Silicon Valley and surround myself with people who think really, really big.
Explore, understand the startup industry, because my parents are industrialists. They never forced me to be businessman.
I feel like though, given your journey though, you chose to come back to maybe an entrepreneurial path by yourself though.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it didn't sound like your parents were kind of pushing you in a certain direction. My parents did push me when I was younger of like, will you consider medical school? Will you consider law and things like that?
How was like did you know like from once it started getting hits, like what were the challenges?
I had a great time in college. I worked really hard to get into a good school and then I got in and then I was determined to have as much fun as possible when I got to college. So definitely enjoyed some partying, some video games, smoking weed, like all those things. I didn't really do too much in terms of trying to start to develop my career with fancy internships. That really wasn't a priority.
I know Hustle Fund is like publicly angel invested, but how did idea of Hustle Fund come through?
So
welcome to Founders Decoded. This is for founders to founders as well as investors to founders. And we bring you Founders Decoded. And here we bring in Eric Bahn. And Eric Bahn is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and a co-founder of Hustle Fund, an early stage venture fund. After graduating from Stanford University, he started working at Interior. At the same time, he created Beat the GMAT, and a social network for people who are prepping for GMAT. One thing I like about Eric is his candidness, at the same time, his industry agnostic approach. In today's world, I feel a lot of people face that difficulty solving in multi-domain industries. So later, Eric founded in 2005 Beat the GMAT, and it got sold to Daily Mail in 2012. And after selling Beat the GMAT, Eric was a product manager at Facebook and Instagram, where he worked various product and monetization teams. Then he joined founded startups. Recognizing the gap in early stage founders, then him and his friends together started Hustle Fund, where Elizabeth and Shay & Co. are their co-founders. Launching in 2017, Hustle Fund focuses on investing in pre-seed startups, aiming to support hustling entrepreneurs, irrespective of their backgrounds, like me. So, and also teaches angels how to invest their funds, which is very cool concept that I came to know through Eric, and a lot of learned from Eric. So let's travel the journey of Eric in time, and yeah.
awesome. Well, Ravan, thank you so much for doing this here with me in my garage.
Yes.
I haven't had that many guests at my house for things like this. So I'm really honored to have you here.
I'm very honored. Like, I've never seen anyone, you took in anyone to garage for an interview since 2017, I think. So, and this is like, I feel very honored. And guys, Eric's garage is cool.
It's cool for sure for me. I would like less rodents in here and maybe clean up the insect problem. But I gotta say, you're a really good sport about this. Thank you, Ravant, again for making the trip out here.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Anytime I would fly ocean for you.
Same for you, man.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's start with your journey.
Yeah.
So through your story, like, you've seen like industry agnostic, like you're a very versatile person. How did this come to you? Like, basically, even though a lot of people today, they're not very industry agnostic. They seem they are industry agnostic, but no, they are not. And how can be someone very industry agnostic?
You know, something that I really appreciated about our brief history of getting to know each other, and I say, Ravant, you and I really started to get to know each other from the last holiday party that we held in San Francisco for Angel Squad, our community of angel investors, is the fact that I think we share something in common, which is we're curious people. In that first conversation, I'm not sure you remember, we spanned a lot of things about personal relationships, technology, and so forth. And I try not to. What I like about this question is I try not to ever isolate anyone as just one thing. Just like a great fintech guy or a great food and beverage entrepreneur or something like that. Like we're all those things. And I also just possess a lot of bizarre, diverse interests I love to study and dig into. And it's really convenient to kind of wrap that around this lens of just being industry agnostic, which essentially is just another way of saying like curious about a lot of different things. And in my career, I think I've been lucky to been able to identify folks who are maybe a little bit more specialists, whom I've been able to become friends with, get to learn from, and this has allowed me to have a pretty winding path in my own career, and especially the work that I get to do at Hustle Fund today, which is investing in a whole diverse set of founders.
Yeah, I agree. Like at the same time, you see problem from bigger as well as microscopic level as well when you're investing in
Sir,
investors, as well as I feel like when you did like political science transfer
yeah,
to being a product manager and at the same time beat the GMAT, like how I see hustling there at the same time, like I was also that kind of person, but you gave a lot of inspiration to a lot of people, and that's one of the reasons like I want you to be out here. Uh, and what I realized from your story is like you did like again through like after beat the GMAT, you again sold it and again worked in industry for 1 2 years.
yeah.
Again worked in startup, and then you founded your company. So did you plan this like skips from one industry to another industry?
Not at all. I think this is one of the best parts of life is that as a kid, I think was dreaming too small, right? And then I happened to be lucky to move here to the Silicon Valley and surround myself with people who think really, really big. And when you're in an environment like this, you lived in the Bay Area and I live in New York, and like, these kinds of environments with people who dream so big, uh, over time you start to become infected with that. And then the vision of where your life can go this way or that way can change as well. So I think I take a little bit of a fatalistic view of life. I don't really try to plan too much ahead. I just assume that there's, for whatever reason, logic in the universe that allows me to see these opportunities, and I'm blessed to have an environment and to be courageous enough also to just jump in and like do things that are just interesting over time. Starting media businesses, I had a video game company that failed at one point. I had a whole diverse set of interests as well as hobbies like track driving, DJing, and things like this. And there's just so much to understand in life and to just enjoy. And I think that one of the beautiful things that I figured out in life is just to stop planning. And it's really worked out well because when you stop planning and just enjoy the ride, it can take you to some pretty fascinating places.
That's very fascinating. And one of my friend does not follow by that, but I follow similar on path with you,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of agree with you. Like you have to plan some things,
Yeah.
and at the same time you have to plan. Uh, don't have to plan all your goals in your life next 20 years or
Yeah.
yeah,
There's something that probably you and I also share in upbringing. So we're both Asians,
yeah.
right? You grew up in an Indian household. I grew up in a Korean household. And just not to stereotype too much, but there is an expectation, especially just like, man, wouldn't it be great if you're a doctor or a lawyer from like your parents, right? And sometimes I worry that I ended up being a little bit disappointing in that I didn't follow those kinds of veins of very stable careers. And you took a path as an entrepreneur, so did I. Of course, every parent wants to make sure that their kid does well, can provide for their own families and so forth. But I've always felt a little bit of that tension too. I wonder if you have, Revant, of just like you're doing this wild life here in the U.S. Like we talked about some of your travels, the journeys, the love, like all this stuff. That's probably something your parents did not expect for their own kid.
True. They did not expect me to be like um immediately going on a rebel phase of like not being an entrepreneur because I come from entrepreneurial family,
Mm.
and they were expecting him since 6th grade like me to be an entrepreneur, and me to be a good businessman and take over the business. Then when I saw it in the application, I rebelled. And then onwards, like I did like research. I loved research, like solving problems. Like that's the biggest thing I learned in research.
Yeah.
Like how core you could go to solve a problem, at the same time, like the dedication you learn from it. And at the same time, I was like, what am I doing? I need to uh, start a business. I don't know why. Like when I got the PhD, I felt like there's life beyond PhD and other circumstances. So I started like, I think this is it. Like I need to go to SF, but at the same time, like I need to explore, understand the startup industry, because my parents are industrialists. They never forced me to be businessman, but there was always come back, like be doing business. All this controlled by a lot of people in business, and even politicians are controlled by business. Like there are several theories, and I kept on defending, and at the same time, like it was a lot of quarrel.
I feel like though, given your journey though, you chose to come back to maybe an entrepreneurial path by yourself though.
Yeah.
Right? It didn't sound like your parents were kind of pushing you in a certain direction. My parents did push me when I was younger, of like, will you consider medical school? Will you consider law and things like that? And I think I'm still in my rebellious phase in my early 40s now. But you know, that they supported and all that stuff. But that's I think the beauty of also living here, I think, in the Bay Area is just like you start to believe that anything can happen here, especially when you're working in tech, right? And Silicon Valley is not just, by the way, San Francisco Bay Area, but it's also, it could be in New York, it could be in Singapore, it can be in New Delhi, elsewhere. But once you're in it, just like regardless of your backgrounds, and you mentioned I was like a political science major in college, it just feels like you have a place here to build anything. And I love that. Yeah.
It's I would say Silicon Valley is a land of creators rather than just dedicating it to San Francisco.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's one thing I've observed in the past few years.
Yeah.
It's grown into multiple cities.
Absolutely, it has.
Yeah. And there are more few questions like, how was your journey in the Beat the GMAT though?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how was like did you know, like from once it started getting hits, like what were the challenges?
Yeah. I guess I would walk you through some of the early journey for how this got founded. So I was I had a great time in college. I worked really hard to get into a good school, and then I got in, and then I was determined to have as much fun as possible when I got to college. So definitely enjoyed some partying, some video games, smoking weed, like all those things. I didn't really do too much in terms of trying to start to develop my career with fancy internships. That really wasn't a priority. And then finally, there came the point where I was about to graduate from college. And I remember like calling my mom, because I was just a little child at that point, and I saying like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't have a great GPA, and like, I haven't done anything. And she was like, in her Korean American English, in a very funny way, she said like, Eric, you're too dumb to be a doctor or a lawyer. So why don't you think about business? And no knock to anyone who's in business today. There are plenty of brilliant people. I'm sitting next to one who do well in business, but
I'm okay.
Great job. Yeah, no, but you know, so I thought like, you know, well, how do you get into business? Well, there's a school in business called business school, and the way that Beat the GMAT started was in my senior year of college. I went to the library. I got a bunch of books, like Kaplan books, Princeton Review books. These are like test prep books for studying for the GMAT, which is the entrance exam for business school. So think of like the SATs in the US or the CAT exam in India and so forth. And so you study for the test. It's usually the first thing that you do to prepare for business school. And I wrote a blog for 60 days from day 1 to 60 on how I exactly prepared for the test. It was like, day 1, open your Kaplan book, pages 14 to 60 or something, and do these math problems. Here's what I learned. That blog ended up becoming a bit of a viral sensation in 2005 among MBA applicants.
Yeah.
And then over the course of the next 9 years, it turned into this magnificent project of just like turning into this large community, turning into a social network. Eventually, at the very end, it was a data analytics platform where we were predicting 6 months in advance where people were going to apply to business school, because we had 95% of the MBA market at that point on Beat the GMAT, sharing all these data in advance. And we would sell these data anonymized as a predictive analytics to business schools to see what their application rounds would look like for $100,000 a year. So it was a really awesome business, but completely accidental. It started actually a little bit along the themes that we were just discussing before. I had a really keen interest around this notion of MBA admissions. I also had like this keen sense of like, if we can build this community that democratizes access to all this great information, where anyone, regardless of their resources, could have a fair shot of competing to get into their dream school, whatever it is, that'd be a really cool education mission too. And it just slowly, through curiosity, ended up becoming this data business that I never anticipated. And that was the story of Beat the GMAT. But I will say that in the first 3.5 years I was working on Beat the GMAT, I was able to get a job. I was a products manager working at Intuit, and I had the greatest boss. His name was Olivier, whom I disclosed in the beginning. Like, I got this like little side startup here. It's called Beat the GMAT. He's like, cool, go ahead, right? And at my desk at Intuit in my cubicle, there was 2 screens. One was Intuit work, and the other was Beat the GMAT work. And I was working on both in parallel for 3.5 years. He was awesome about it.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to incubate the business to get to a point where I was making some serious money. And then once I was making more money than I was making it Intuit, I quit and just focused on Beat the GMAT. Yeah.
That was cool. Like, you were also doing a part-time employee and that also like raising a full-time startup. That was like,
Well, I was a full-time employee, but then but also a full-time startup founder. But working at a big company, I've learned that if you're really efficient with your work, you can probably do it in like 30 hours. And then you can spend 50, 60 hours, doing the rest. The things rough. Yeah.
yeah. And that was interesting journey. Like, at the same time, like you said, who was your first customer? Like, who was your money-making customer?
Yeah. There's an interesting story behind that. So we never monetized from the students. So if you're like trying to apply to business school or Revant, we wouldn't take money from you, because I always strongly felt students should actually get this access for free. So the people who we monetized were actually like test prep companies, MBA admissions consultants, the schools themselves that we knew had deeper pockets. The fun fact, though, is the very first check that I ever received for $3,000 was from a company called Manhattan Prep, which was at the time run by this man named Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang is now a relatively famous person. 4 years ago, he ran for president as a Democrat, and he actually got very, very far. So he's a really well-known politician and entrepreneur now, and he's the guy that signed my first check. And then later, when I started Hustle Fund, he was one of the first people to say yes as one of my first investors at Hustle Fund too.
Wow.
Yeah. I owe quite a bit to that family. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of awestruck at the moment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, Manhattan Prep, like, that's where I got my GRE prep. And
No, what? You use those books too?
yeah, I used the 5-pound book.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a great book.
So that is what allowed you to get your graduate school education in the U.S. Like helped you with entrance?
Passed the GRE exam.
No way.
And then, like, I applied to USC with my research profile.
Yeah.
I was able to get in.
Amazing, man. That's so cool. What a weird connection that you and I share there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I did not know you helped me get there. And now,
Not at all. It was all you, but yeah, we share that.
yes,
Yeah.
we share that. We share that indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
And what was like your hardest day there?
You're a founder too, so there's a lot of hard days. I would say that in general, the exercise of being a founder, it's a depressing job. It feels actually 95% of the time really, really difficult, especially when you're a young founder. When I was around your age, actually in my mid-20s running this company, I have a sense you do this better than I do, but I had a really difficult time prioritizing what was truly an important thing to worry about versus what isn't. Everything felt important. So it felt like I was constantly battling fires. But the real darkest moment was there was a time where our business was down to its last $250, right? Like we were about to run out of cash. We owed like $13,000 the next day. This is like on a Sunday night, totally out of money. I remember like that was like one of like the most like memorable moments where I was like sitting in the couch. I was crying in the office. It was late at night on a Sunday. I was thinking, like, what the hell are we gonna do? And then coming to the office the next day, there was a handful of people still working at GMAT at the time. We had to get rid of some people. And then I was like, I think we're over. Like we owe all this money and I have none. And then that's when the team started to jump in and share ideas of how we could save the company. It's like, well, what if we don't pay the people we owe? Well, let's just call them right now. What if we can get advances on money from our clients who really are loyal to us? And we survived that day. We survived the next day. We survived that week. We survived that year. A couple of years after that, had a great outcome with the business. And what I learned from that experience was just, in that kind of dark moment, I think it's very easy for founders to feel the temptation to just try to figure it out themselves, turn inward. But when you have great people around you and you can just lean into them and say like, I need your help to help me figure this out. Trusting like your teammates, I think was like the biggest lesson I got out of that. So it's a very bittersweet memory for me, just like that moment of just like running out of cash and feeling like I was about to fail. And then learning, I think the greatest lesson of just like surround yourself with excellent people, trust them and lean into them more.
Wow.
Yeah.
I see that like when you treat like your employees as your family and teammates as your family, they actually like stand up for you. I've seen that even in my dad's company, and currently like when I'm starting this company, there were tough times like when you have the first client or like having like scaling all this like 200 clients at this point,
Yeah.
and the monetization like depends on all the other factors, and everyone has been loyalty each other,
Yeah.
so that plays very very major role. And
Yeah.
open honest like conversations like
I got to push back on you on one thing though. So I struggled with this concept of like treating my teammates as family. And ultimately, I've landed that I will not refer to them as family for a very specific reason. So I want to be really clear. If you're working at Health Fund right now, like it would be wonderful if we actually can spend the rest of our careers together and like we can create an environment where, people on our team want to stay and grow with us for the long term. But there have been cases where we've had to ask people to go where, maybe it started off well, but like later we discovered that there's kind of like a lack of growth or progression, or just, it just seemed like the fit was starting to become detached. And in those kinds of moments, like the responsible thing is to let those people go because you need to serve the remaining teammates who might be throttled by someone that's a weaker player on your team. So, I deeply care personally about every single one of my teammates, but I also need to recognize the fact that, we are here to actually conduct business together. And that does have to frame, I think, the conditions by which we're going to treat each other, how we work together, how we're going to be responsible to each other. And if that social contract starts to break or is lacking, then you need to make those difficult decisions. And those always break my heart, right? Just people that I really, really, really like that just are no longer a fit for our team that we have to ask to leave. And as a result, like I've actually shifted my own words where I try not to talk about family or fam or something like that. It might be a little bit different though when it comes to like co-founders though. Like I do refer to my co-founders, Elizabeth and Sheehan, as sisters to me because it does feel like that. I've known them for 24 years. I've done multiple companies with them. It's to the point where even my co-founder Elizabeth, if we go to a restaurant and I need to use the bathroom, she'll just order for me because she knows exactly what I want to eat. And then like, if I were in a life or death situation, I would 100% trust them to make the right choices that they know I would want. I am very dedicated to my co-founders and like that almost is closest to family. But that's something I do struggle with. It's just understanding like what is the right level of social contract within these people whom I care about, but making sure that we're here for business too.
yeah, no, I agree with you at that point of um I me and my dad kind of faced this like recently.
Hmm.
I would not say that because it would affect people, and kind of like I would give you a nitty gritty of what happened is, uh, someone stole something from the business.
It wasn't within your family though, was it?
It was not within
Okay.
the family.
Yeah.
And you have to teach them a lesson, as well as like make sure no other employees will do that.
Yes.
So like my parents treat like everyone as a family, in a sense, like if they need something, they will give it to it.
Yeah.
And because they have been loyal, and if they go against us, or like why should someone care for you?
Yeah.
Like without a reason, if someone goes against us, like why should someone care?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I get the sense that maybe philosophically your parents, me, you are kind of aligned on just like,
Yeah.
look, I mean, if you're going to stick with us for years and we're going to develop our careers together, you know, probably as leaders we would bend over backwards, right, to really serve those founders. But if that trust is breached after all that like investment we made into each other, it's like, what the hell was that for? Right? Like like taking money or something like that when I would have just like easily given it to you is something. And those are really the most heartbreaking moments. There's something actually that Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI and all these great like YC president, all this stuff, once said that I kind of like. He's like, you know, one of the costs of being super authentic and honest with people and transparent with them and vulnerable with them is that you're going to get screwed over every once in a while. But it's like, but it's worth it, because like you can just live your life to be authentic, vulnerable with people. And it's largely like mostly receiving that reward back. But every once in a while you will get screwed over. And I think I've accepted that as the cost on occasion. Hopefully it doesn't happen too much to your family, me, you,
Yeah.
too often though.
No, I agree with you. Like that teaches you like who's with you and who's not with you at the same time.
Yeah,
All the how do you face that challenge?
exactly, man. Exactly.
And final question on funding, founders hat basically.
Yeah.
If like founders are fundraising today,
Yeah.
what could they do in early stage? Like let's say 100K or 500K or something like that. What is the tip that you have for founders depending on industry?
Absolutely. So I'll share more industry agnostic advice, just general advice for those who are maybe looking for pre-seed or angel capital. I think that there's only 5 parts to a really good founder pitch in my mind. It's team, problem, solution, market, and traction. I'll sort of talk about each one of these. And if you can nail it in touching on each of these 5 pillars, you're in a really good spot for positioning a decent fundraise. So team is, is this a team that has the relevant skills for solving a given problem? Let me give you an example. Let's say that you and I were both political science majors and marketers afterwards, and we decided to pitch like this new company that's going to cure COVID with just a single pill, right? And then maybe like an investor asks like, this is a cool idea. It's $1 trillion opportunity to cure COVID with just a tiny little pill one time. What is their background? And if we're like, well, we were poli-sci majors and worked in marketers, then like there's such a gap between like our skills and experiences and then what the business actually will do that it just doesn't make any sense. Now, if it's the same business, but we're like, well, Revant used to be the head of virology research at Genentech for 15 years, and I worked in his lab, and together we cured like 5 different types of viral diseases. That actually sounds super credible, right? That's that's like a really good.
So credible. Like even
Yeah.
if you have like non-tech, non-related
Yeah.
CEO, but like you need to have people in the team that are relevant industry that boosts actually the startup a lot more.
Yeah.
What if in few minutes ago, like we were talking, like one thing I learned about New York is like hospitality consultants.
Yeah.
So like I did not know that was a thing until I went there, and these people immediately got me like 10-15 clients just with text message.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like, as a founder, astonished me, and then like immediately brought me the other person to the team.
Sure.
And since they are a great asset.
Amazing. Yeah. So having that kind of relevant experience and skills, I think, is just like the first and foremost, most important part of any early stage fundraise or pitch, simply because like I'd say 60 or even 70% of the decision will be on like, is this the right team that can win? Right. So I think that kind of founder to problem match is really important. Let's talk about problem for a second. It's not enough to have a really great problem statement. Maybe a good problem statement for me as a young dad is like, we need Uber for young kids. So the thinking behind this is, you're gonna learn this when you decide to have children someday, Ravant, which is, you know, lugging around a car seat to go to like the grocery store with your Uber is almost like a non-starter. Like, why would you like bring like this like 30-pound thing around with you? So in theory, it'd be kind of nice to have like Uber is already set up for like the right car seat for your child and all that. Great. Maybe Uber is starting to do this. I've been sort of seeing this in the app. So that sounds nice as a problem statement, but what's more interesting is like, how did you arrive at this problem? Is this just a problem for 42-year-old Korean men who live in the Bay Area? Or is it more expansive to that? Like, did you talk to hundreds of families, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different professions, different race, gender, or whatever it is, different geographies? If you can show that like, oh, I've talked to like hundreds of families because I'm obsessed with this problem. The customer discovery part of it actually is even more important to me than the problem statement, to arrive to the conclusion that like, oh my gosh, like Ravanta's like obsessed with like this problem. Like he definitely is someone that like is doing this not just for money, but there's a real passion behind it.
Like talking to the customers as well as like all the people
You
who
got
are
it, man.
facing the issue, find out
Yeah.
people who are facing the issue and keeping in touch with them. Like it's a bonus because like once you develop something,
Yeah.
it's
And like your journey's been really great too. Like before we actually started this recording, you sort of were excited about telling me about all the people that you spoke to, like getting into calls with and scheduling dozens of meetings. Like that is, I think, as a sign of like a very principled founder. Yeah. So we talk about team, we talk about problem.
Yeah.
Solution is like our assessment of the early product or service that you're trying to build. In our case at Hustle Fund, this is actually usually the weakest part of the entire pitch, and it's fine. It's like the early MVP. I want to see like, what are you prioritizing in your early launch, even if it's a bit ugly, to start the process of like beginning that journey to build the final product and that vision. But I want to play with the tools and see what that experience is like. Team, problem, solution, market. It has to be a huge market if you're going to go after venture dollars. Like for me at Hustle Fund, we want to make the case that if we invest in founder Ravant at the valuation he's seeking now, do we think that he's the right founder with the right market to achieve a 100x outcome for us, where we can literally 100x the amount of money that we put in at the company right now? That's the threshold we're looking for as pre-seed founders. So I'll give you an example of like potentially like an amazing market that's too small. So let's pretend that you're pitching me and you're like, I've created the world's greatest trombone oil. So I'm talking about the instrument trombone, right? Like you got to lubricate that thing, right, as you're playing it. And let's say that, you're like, this is like the world's greatest trombone oil in the world. Like 95% of like trombonists want to use this oil or whatever. I'm thinking to myself, like, how many people play the trombone? Is this like a maximum like $5 million a year business? Like that's not going to be venture scale enough. And I might say, screw you, go away. But then you might say like on the way out the door, like, hang out a second, Eric, my oil can also work with industrial equipment. Like this lubricant actually can work like in fabrications, like foundries and all this stuff. And then now I'm calculating in my mind, like that sounds like a hundreds of billions of dollar market right there. The TAM has suddenly exploded. So the latter is exciting. The former is not, because the market sizes and expectations for our exits are entirely different. Yeah.
It's interesting to know that, like how solution approach at the same time, like TAM and SAM. But in the end, like when the founder solves the problem, getting all this done together, I think like that's a good, like even with or without of investment, I would see attraction, because like when they talk with people, they know it is valid, and when they build something, they're going to test it with the people who talked.
Exactly.
If it is not working, they're going to fix and either move on. Once you're a founder, you cannot give up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's, I know.
I mean, I think what you're describing very well is this notion of, missionary founders versus mercenary founders. So a mercenary founder to me would be like, you and me should start a company because we think we're going to make a crazy amount of money, and it doesn't matter what we're doing. Like I just see money right here. There's nothing wrong with making a ton of money. And in fact, every founder who's working on a startup, I want to make a lot of money. But what I find with mercenary founders is like they have a hard time focusing. They might say like, there's a lot of money in Web3 right now. Let's do that. Oh wait, there's a lot of money in AI now. Let's go after that. There's just, they constantly just kind of float to where there's the most money. And I tend to find those to be the most suboptimal people to work with the most suboptimal results. A missionary founder, though, is a founder who is doing this for like principles. It's like, not only do I want to make a lot of money, yes, but I actually think like there's an impact to the world that I can create here. One of the best examples of this is like one of our best founders we've ever supported. Her name is Tara Viswanathan. She's a founder of a company called Rupa Health. She's creating lab ordering infrastructure for hospitals, clinics, all that stuff. And the really cool thing about her is like, yeah, she wants to make a ton of money doing this stuff. Her goal is to IPO someday. But when she's talking about this business, is utterly clear to me. She's trying to create modern tools for hospitals, clinics, individual clinicians, and so forth, to allow them to actually serve patients better first and foremost, to allow people to find better personalized care for their own health outcomes. Like that is what she really, really cares about. And when you see the team, you can tell that that is why they're in this business. And those are the most exciting founders to work with because they're so obsessed with the impact they're trying to create in this world. They will stick with it even when the times are really difficult and it's so non-obvious for them to stay with it. And she's creating incredible business as a result. So we talked about the team, the problem, the solution, the market, and the last is actually the traction, which you cited. So there's a tweet by this guy. His name is Justin Kan. He's one of the co-founders of Twitch. This is from like 6 years ago. He said, first time founders focus on product. Second time founders focus on distribution. And I actually think that really distills the best kind of founders for me are those who not just are passionate about building great products or services or experiences, but also love to sell. You know, they get excited about their go-to-market strategies. They get excited about lining up contracts, closing deals, because at the end of the day, if you get lucky, sometimes the product goes viral and it works out, but most of the time, you need to just get out there and sell. So when you're sort of talking about like the work that you're doing with like this hospitality consultants and so forth, what impressed me about you as a founder of Ant was just like, you were like, get me in front of these people so I can convince them to use their products and services, right? Like you want to sell to them.
Yeah.
And I think that is always going to be the most consistent quality of like some of the best founders we ever work with. Like those who are excited about selling, telling them why this is a good product for the clients that they're trying to serve and so forth.
I love that. Like when someone has a passion beyond money, like they will not quit. And passionate team.
Yeah.
Like no matter how much the idea always grows on. Like it starts with one small thing and it grows into a big flower.
Yeah.
And it blooms.
I love that. Yeah, that's right. So if you nail that team, problem, solution, market, and traction, could even be just those 5 slides, but you can make a strong case for why you're winning on all those dimensions. I think you have a really good shot as a founder to put together some capital.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I will work on it at Breaker.
Very good.
But-
Yeah, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, definitely. And one more thing, like asking about Hustle Fund though.
Yeah.
Like I know Hustle Fund is like publicly angel invested, but how did idea of Hustle Fund come through to you?
So I started Hustle Fund with, I have 2 co-founders, Elizabeth and Sheehan. Sheehan joined us about 9 months after we started the fund. So it was originally just me and Elizabeth. At the time, we had been working at an accelerator called 500 Startups. So we saw a lot of companies. We understood how accelerator models worked and so forth. And there's, I think, an observation that we made about, and this isn't about 500, but just about seed in general, the seed ecosystem as investors. It was like, why is it that the same type of guy is just getting all of the seed capital? It started with that single question. And what I mean by this is like a very specific set of people. It's like, if you're a white or Asian man, went to like a Stanford or equivalent computer science program, worked at a FANG company like Facebook or Google or whatever, wears a Patagonia vest, is tall, whatever. Like there's like a stereotype of these like men who actually disproportionately have an easier time raising capital. And that led to a second very uncomfortable question, which was, is it the case that the men who are receiving this money are getting the money because they're just better? Like, for example, are men better than women at running companies? Are they Are white people better than black people at running companies and so forth? And one of the crazy things that we had to our disposal was data. Like when we were at 500 startups, there at the time, there's something like 3,000 companies that had invested in. So we could look at the data. By no means could we find any correlation. Just because you're one race or one gender or you're from this one geography, does it reliably predict that you can go on to build a great company? However, there was a different kind of criterion that we discovered that was correlating to success that you can find in a diverse set of founders, and it was a quality that we call hustle. So we define hustle as great execution meets high velocity. Teams that are very experimental, oriented towards measurement, are constantly improving the throughput of what they can ship each week, each month, each year, tend to just grind out best businesses over time. We could see all the notes of the companies that we were serving at 500, and it was clear to us that it only took us about 2 to 4 weeks to identify after working with these teams that which ones were the true hustlers building great companies, which ones weren't. And once we kind of realized this hustle factor and realized like you don't need 3 months of an accelerator to actually understand like who your winners are going to be, you only need a couple of weeks. That began the early ideas behind Hustle Fund, which is this idea of like, let's actually have a much more condensed period of time of working with teams. Let's try to add some real value during that time too, through like growth projects that will help the founders with. Get a sense of like the team's hustle, give a chance to prove to the founders ourselves that we're true hustlers too with them. And it just created this model where not only could we identify great founders through this unique process and approach at Hustle Fund, but it also gave us a chance to prove our value to the founders too, because it was really important to make it feel like it was a balanced relationship. It wasn't one where the founders are just trying to impress us and that's it, like we're Caesar. Don't want that. Like I've been on the other side of that. I hated it. But rather that like we're in their service too. We can create a little bit more of a services model, just like you have a bank who's acting as a service person for you, or like a payroll service, like we're your venture capital service now. And once we sort of figured out like these core principles that we wanted to create in 2017, we broke off and then started running this funds model. And now we're approaching 7 years in and 3 funds. We're about to launch our 4th fund, hopefully in the next year or so, behind this model. Yeah, so it's exciting. And we have a team of 36 people now, like it's in this community of 2,000 angel investors, a big media operation behind it. And I think I'll leave this with this one last thought too, is like a big personal mission of mine too, is to represent and encourage kindness. So like we celebrate a lot of brilliant assholes here in Silicon Valley often, and great. I mean, like some of them are doing cool work. I get that, but there's also really, really emotionally intelligent, awesome human beings who are also equally successful that don't get celebrated enough because they're not loud on Twitter. They just tend to be just like operating well, heads down and so forth. And those are the founders that we want to serve, but we want to also encourage and celebrate those kinds of founders and investors. And I think we've been able to build this community of really, really good human beings around us as well to make Silicon Valley hopefully a little bit more kinder. And that's something that I think is like a long-term mission that I'm working on too with this team.
I will join you with that.
Oh, you're already here, man. I mean, you're already part of our Angel Squad community. Like we've known each other. I know the way that you're building right now, just from the months of getting to know you, Revant, and you absolutely represent, I think, the kind of leaders that we're trying to support, and actually those that we are celebrating right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I seen like kindness is really lacking these days, but at the same time, when I first met Eric and first time we met and actually Google, but I barely had
At the
time.
Founders Fans event.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That was quick.
That was
We didn't really know each other.
and at the same time, like I immediately had to go home, and I was like, I wish I had talked with Eric, and then immediately I came to know about the program, and
Yeah.
Christmas party, my wish came true, like,
Yeah, sure, yeah.
and he was like such a kind person. I love his kindness. Like it reminded me of like all my family.
I
Like
appreciate
all my
that.
family is kind to everyone at the same time. Like people, like it kind of reminded great friend.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah.
You know, the crazy thing I sort of learned over time, and I have to hold on to this because, you know, people are mean to me all the time in this industry. Like, I'm a bit of a, we were talking about this before the recording even, like, I'm a little bit more of a target these days because, like, the profile of Hustle Fund is raised a bit. And so sometimes I do get on the receiving end of some very unkind behavior. But I'm convinced you can make people more kind in almost any stage of their life. And the evidence of that is actually me. I think I kind of started my life as a young adult, one of those assholes, like very insecure. I was lucky to have a great girlfriend who's now my wife, who kind of really helped me in this journey to become much nicer. But I was also super lucky to luck into a group of friends and colleagues who were really kind and smart too, who inspired me to want to become kind as well. So I think kindness is really, really this infectious quality, which is like when you're surrounded by kind people and you're the only asshole, eventually like you can become less of an asshole and become really kind too. It's sort of like a wonderful cult that we need to form, but you can inspire it. That's the thing that like I think I didn't believe until more recently in my life. Yeah.
When did you start believing?
I think there's about 10 years ago. So I came across this Buddhist saying that really stuck into my soul. And now it's actually something that I I full I try to live my life by. And the saying is this, which is when you bow to the mirror, the reflected image bows back. When you bow to the mirror, the reflected image bows back. And Ravant, the way that I sort of interpret this is like the way that you treat your environment will be reciprocated in kind. When I was the insecure asshole in my early 20s, I felt like I was being surrounded by a bunch of insecure assholes as well back at me. It was like this vicious cycle. But then I made a decision one day to pretend to be nice. Like I said, like, I'm going to take a step. I'm going to just pretend to be nice. And then I kept on pretending. I kept on pretending. And then like the environment started changing around me. I started to get like different kinds of friends, different kinds of reactions and colleagues. And then one day I realized I actually am nice. Like I'm no longer pretending. Like this is just the way my mind is actually conditioned. I rewired myself. And it certainly helped that like once I started to get into like more healthy groups of people and discarded those that were a little bit more toxic, like it became so easy and natural to just want to be nice to people and generous to people. Like I bowed to a different the reflections start images bowing back to me like that. So it was really being inspired by that quote of just like, what if I just like decide not to be an asshole to people and just be really nice to people, and then suddenly everything just changed. Not suddenly, it was a little more less dramatic than that, but like it really started. Like I could feel my life changing at that point.
I see that like happening in general, like when people are angry kids when they're kids actually.
Yeah.
And as you grow, most of the people reflect at the same time, like observe the surrounding. And sometimes some people reflect on it and grow on it. Like I grown with my grandma's stories. So like most of the stories end in dharma. Dharma means like not impure, like and courage, dhairya. And finally like um kind to all the people. Like there was a story like just explaining two women um who liked their husband, and they were going across to meet the husband. So the first person went through like ant hill, uh like stomping all ants, at the same time like uh removed all the water from the lake, uh like removing all the obstacles to meet the person. But at the same time like she realized she forgot something, so she had to come back. And again, like while going back, the anthill got so raged and angry, so started biting things.
Yeah.
And like the tree that she cut it off, like there are no more flowers,
Yeah.
so to keep in her head. And at the same time like other person who was like a lot of kinder, so the anthill basically did not do anything. At the same time like they were procuring some sugar,
Yeah.
so they gave the sugar, a little bit of sugar, like as a sweet kind of
Yeah.
thing. And at the same time like the trees gave flowers to the person, and the lake kind of gave like a freshness, like all the other factors, like the world gave
Yeah.
good things to kinder people. And that was like all my grandma's stories are nice. So
Wow. So she really was into these kinds of parables,
Yeah.
right? And teaching those to you when you were a kid. Is that what you grew up with?
yeah, that's what I grew up with. Like
Sounds like a great lady.
she is like
Yeah.
she misses me.
Yeah.
I-
Pay her a visit. She's yeah. But I love that, and I think you're absolutely right. Like those kinds of parables, I think, do speak a core truth to like just how humanity can function or maybe even how the universe functions. This is kind of like a weird tangent here, but I'll share like something that has made me feel very spiritually aligned on my purpose recently, and it came from the most unusual source. There's this is a child's book series. Someday when you have kids, you gotta read it. It's called Dog Man, and it's not it's cute. It's like a crude cartoon, but it has some of the sweetest messages, and it actually features one of my favorite superheroes of all time. His name is Cat Kid. A little bit of backstory. Cat Kid's dad is this evil cat named Petey. He's like the arch nemesis of the world. He's very hateful and everything like that. And one day he decides, I need more people like me who are as competent as me. I'm going to clone myself. And then so he makes a genetic identical clone of himself, and his name is Little Petey. It's a little kitten. It turns out that this little kitten is the sweetest cat ever, just like the nicest cat. And over the course of many books, he slowly heals his dad, who actually is rooted in evil because like he was really mistreated by his father. They delve into that relationship. His Big Petey's dad is still around. He's actually non-correctable. He's actually just pure evil. But like Little Petey says, like, we can stop this trauma. Like our relationship will be pure. And then over time, this Big Petey evil character ends up becoming a pretty nice cat. Anyway, so Little Petey, and Cat Kid, there's a whole series of books on this. Eventually, there's this whole concept where they talk about quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
And they talk about this whole concept of the observer effect, which is just like, look, when you observe something, just purely by the way that you observe something can actually change its quantum state. So if I view like you in very evil, mean terms or something like that, I'm actually like, just by merely observing it, changing the quantum state of you or more in my environment. Or maybe if I just treat everyone with love, kindness, vulnerability, and just view everything as positively as I can, you're actually literally changing the quantum state of that too. So where I find peace in this is like, I think about my purpose. Like sometimes I take a very nihilistic view, like, well, someday I'm going to be dead. The stars going to become a red giant and consume the earth. Like all this is gone. We're just going to be recycled into space dust. What's the point of this? Like that's a very negative view that I've held in a long time. But now I start to think of like, what if we spend this time, Rivant, like flipping a lot of quantum bits in the most positive view possible, even when we're gone? Maybe we've actually changed like the fundamental quantum mechanics of like the universe in a very small way that can have effects that we don't even perceive for trillions of years, but could actually be really positive. That could be our legacy too. And so it's a really odd one, but like, this is where like, I feel like kindness also may have like a lot longer legacy than we anticipate. While our time on Earth is limited, maybe the quantum bits that we flip along the way are limitless.
They will change a negative charge to positive.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, maybe.
a spin to
Yeah.
a positive spin, which is happening in entanglement.
We'll see. Maybe like trillions of years from now, there's like a alien society that somehow is the benefactor of like our just being nice, right? So for whatever reason, I really believe in that.
I hope it will happen.
Yeah.
And again, one more question on philosophical way, but on other side of investors.
Sure.
Sorry, we came into deep dive into a lot of grandma stories and kid stories.
This is what makes podcasts good, man. Let's keep going. Yeah.
No, sorry. Yeah. And let's say like this is one common thing. Most of the investors there, they had struggled in New York as well. So there are two companies. These are early stage investors that I met. Which one company they have already invested in, and there is another company who came with a similar idea.
Yeah.
So this investor was like, what should I do? Like this is also similar, but this people have kind of education, like good execution strategy or something.
Yeah.
Unique factor, but he does not say that. But at the same time, like what could he do?
Yeah. So let me see if I can play this back. Let's say that you're an existing portfolio company. I've already given you some money, and then a new company comes along. They might have some sort of interesting take or strategy or even like better execution or something that's competitive to you.
Yeah.
Right. So now they want to talk to me. What do I do in this situation? This happens all the time.
Yeah.
The moment that I recognize that there's a conflict,
Yeah.
I stop the conversation and say, like, I need to disclose that there is probably a competing company within our portfolio that is doing a similar thing as to you. You're going to go head to head, but I need to disclose this up front. And here's what we can do. One, we can stop the call. That's one possibility. Two is we can sort of talk about an aspect of the business or a fundraiser or something that is totally not related to maybe the proprietary part of your company. So you can get something out of this call.
Yeah.
And then the third thing that I reiterate is just like, regardless of what you tell me, I commit to not sharing any information that you're giving to me today to our existing portfolio company. And the reason why I actually make that policy super clear is because I have been screwed over by many VCs who like didn't disclose that they had a competing portfolio company within their fund. They took as much information away from me from our calls or conversations, never told me about this conflict, and they just fed it directly to a portfolio company. And it's an interesting ethical question because on the one hand, you could say like, maybe I'm just acting as a fiduciary, stealing all this information and helping my existing portfolio companies. Okay. But for me, there's a longer kind of karma here at play, which is just like, just be honest, right? Just like if you invest in if your portfolio company is just going to run their path, that's fine. But like, I think it is a good service for founders when you just disclose up front that there's a conflict and give them these options of how they would like to proceed, right? But also just making it super clear that you do not share this kind of competitive intelligence back to your existing portfolio companies. And then this is maybe a controversial take, but I hold to this notion that long-term, where we win at Hustle Fund or maybe in life is just being known as a high integrity group that you can just trust. And we cannot compromise that by these temptations of just stealing information or doing things that are gray ethically. So yeah, this happens once a week.
Oh,
I'd say.
that's surprising. I thought it would happen once a month or so.
No, pretty frequently, largely because we have such a large portfolio, over 500 portfolio companies, and you can imagine there's endless permutations happening. Like if we're like a smaller fund or one that just only focuses on like making 20 investments per fund or something like that, maybe it's a lot less frequent, but it happens all the time. And overwhelmingly, the founders on each side, like, well, first of all, the founders on our portfolio, like we already let them know those policies. Like if I'm in a conversation and like it suddenly learned that it's super competitive, I'm not going to share this information with you. You need to figure this out, right? And they get that. But on the other side of it, those who actually are pitching to me, who realize that like I have a competitive conflict by disclosing up front, are overwhelmingly thankful. And I'm not doing it for this reason. They recommend all their friends to Hustle Fund as a result because they know that we're a high integrity group. Yeah.
One thing I noticed that Hustle Fund is high integrity. Like I've been an Angel Squad member. I've noticed that. So
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, because
even from the starting. So yeah, even before an Angel Squad.
I think like this is just maybe being a little bit too self-congratulatory here too. But like, this is my mission,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not here to just only make a lot of money. I hope that we all make a lot of money, sure. But like, as a venture capitalist is a weird something to say. Is like I am not motivated by money. I'm actually more motivated by like working with great human beings who are trying to build for the good reasons. And I just assume that if we just support good humans who are great builders with great ethics, we'll all be rewarded someday, somehow, right? And just injecting that kind of kindness, like, and just not compromising that is so important because the moment you begin to compromise, it'll catalyze into more compromises, right? And we've had to say no to great founders who are an asshole, or like LPs who are offering us a lot of money to invest in our fund, but we're just like, we don't quite trust them, so we're going to say no to it. Or even sponsors for our variety of events and so forth, who can give us a lot of good money, but they're asking for things that we just are uncomfortable with, that make our team uncomfortable, or maybe is a little bit creepy at times to some of our teammates. And we're just like, absolutely not, right? Like, let's protect ourselves, always act in like the most ethical way possible. And then someday we'll just assume we get rewarded. Everyone, not just me.
That is true. That is true. Like I see that like happening. I'm processing at the same time. And that is like very Give me a second.
Yeah, no, take your time, man.
That was very interesting to know that there is a conflict. At the same time, how you handle this is like hats off, like, and at the same time, I did not know like LPs could be this way, FI, and because like I'm starting on that side of
Yeah.
raising as well, so I have to be careful. But thank you for the tip, and thank you for who are trying to raise funds. Here is the tip from Eric. So be careful and also be kind. And
Well, let me leave you with this one last comment on this, which is one of the ways that I like to see the values of people is understanding how they talk about their family.
yeah,
You always talk so respectingly about your grandma, your parents, your brother, your girlfriend. Like we've had a lot of conversations already. We haven't even known each other that long. You got to meet my daughter today. You probably get to see my wife in a little bit after we're done with this, our nanny and all, like the family. And you've probably heard me talk about my family too. And for me, that's always the number one clue of who is this a good person or not? Because if they're really respectful about their family, and even if they don't quite get along with their family, but still like can speak about like what they taught them or like the respect behind it, or just like you want to see that the relationships are most important to them, like are ones that they respect a lot and hold in like sacred regard. The moment I start to hear things like, and I see this in our industry, like where I'm with some VCs or something like that, and they're tempted by some like cute founder or whatever, they want to abuse their position of power, or just like are mishandling, I think that sacred social contract with their family. If they are going to be abusing situations like that and disrespecting the relationships that matter most, then it's not something that I can easily do business with, because how are they going to treat me, right? Or my teammates, right? And so like you got to just keep that bar so high, because the moment you compromise it, that's where all the problems start to happen, right? Personally, professionally, everything. And it's just simply not worth it ever, right?
yeah, sure. It's not worth it risking your family to other person.
Yeah, it really isn't. But you'll be surprised, like when you get on this side of the table and you're very close to it. I mean, you're an angel and all stuff. It's like you can start to see clues of this kind of very poor behavior. It's more prevalent than you might think, and it really upsets me. But the good news is there's also still a lot of good human beings on the side of this table who are trying to do the right thing. The only issue I have these days is like those good human beings just are not loud about being good human beings, because good human beings don't brag about being good, right?
Yeah.
So you don't hear about them, and it makes it more difficult for founders to discover who they are. So it takes just a little bit more work.
No, I agree with
Yeah.
you. It was hard initially discovering you as well.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm more on the more narcissistic end, so I can brag about being nicer, I think, about my team especially. But yeah, it's just it's tricky out there. It really is. Yeah.
Oh, on final questions, like family and friends, like how did like they play when you were doing startups to investment as
Yeah.
well as doing the fund? What was the dynamic happening? Like you had to do a lot of sacrifices, and your wife probably had to do a lot of sacrifices as well. And I do have some guilt, like not spending some time with
Yeah.
my family or able to see them for a while, and sometimes like not even seeing girlfriend for 2 weeks or something like that. But how did you manage that?
This is a hard one, because this as a founder, and I think I speak to all founders out there listening today. Your identity is so closely tied to your company sometimes. Like being a founder is so all consuming, but it can get dangerous. If for example, like your girlfriend's like, hey, let's go out on a Friday night, go get some dinner or movie or something like that. And then you might be tempted by the thought process. I've been there, of just like, these 3 or 4 hours I spend with you could be 3 or 4 hours I'm working. Like, which one am I going to choose today? That's when it starts to get kind of dangerous, right? Of just like, you are now trading off, you're viewing everything as like an opportunity cost of building. I think maybe there's a period of time in your 20s where you can kind of get away with it, because your obligations are a little bit easier, and like your girlfriend's like, she's very ambitious. Like my wife's very ambitious in her 20s. Like we could kind of like make it work. Then you have kids, you have aging parents, like you have all these things that start to happen a little bit later in life. And then you start to realize like there's a really big cost of missing these kinds of moments. I think a few things have helped me. One is therapy and trying to remove this notion that like my value as a human being is this company. I'm lucky to be surrounded by family and friends who sincerely love me because of who I am and could care less if like I decided to end like being a founder or a VC or something. Like they'll still be there, right? I know it. And so just like respecting like, okay, I have really good people around me that I need to invest in too. And then my identity doesn't need to be tied to just being like a founder or something like that. That has helped. But the second and therapy really does help me with this kind of stuff and just talking through this stuff. And then I think the other thing too is just like um as I get older, when I was younger, I think I was really impatient, right? It's just like I want to like accomplish a lot this week even or this day. And you just pack it all in. But now as I'm getting older, it's sort of just like, well, what if I just enjoy the journey a little bit more? First of all, like the moment you become a parent, like your throughput per hour works just somehow increases because you just are forced to learn how to prioritize. So I think like I actually produce more today than I ever did before, right? That's one thing that I really like per hour of work, right? Maybe on average, I work between like 45 and 55 hours a week, which is like a good amount of hours, but it's not crazy. And that allows me to just also just like on the weekends, I really do want to shut down and just like have a sleepover with my kids, take my wife out, do like a hotel night with her or something if I can find something to cover for the kids. And just like enjoy this journey because the thing that you realize you start to age, especially when you have kids. You know, one of my kids is 9 years old right now. And it struck me when the child turned 9, like half of his childhood is over. Like in the mirror, you kind of look largely the same for a long period of time because we're Asian. And so, like, you know, like we're going to look largely the same. You're going to look like the same as you, like when you're 40 as you are at 26 or whatever. But then you see your kids and then you're like, oh my God, like half the childhood is over. How am I going to make the second half amazing for him and for me? And that's when you realize like it means saying no to more stuff, less dinners away, all that stuff, less travel, and enjoying the side of it. But you could still have it all. I'm convinced, and it's less about work-life balance, but more work-life integration. When we started the call, or sorry, when we started this recording, my daughter walked in, and then you might have noticed I said like she's welcome to come in whenever she wants. If she wants to come in and sit down and listen, and it's quiet, she can. She's not here right now.
Yeah, she can join the podcast.
She can, and that's great because like maybe she can learn something about being a founder or being a venture capitalist or struggling with mental health, you know, and like I like that integration versus balance of like one thing versus the other.
I like your word on integration and balancing. I see like when you need some shutdown time to like be a rocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and like the old man stuff, man, like sleep matters. You start to like realize like how much that matters. Diet starts to matter, exercise starts to matter. Like all the things that like when your parents are saying like you gotta eat better, you gotta sleep more, you're like, yeah, whatever, fuck it, right? So when you get to my age, you're just like, it really does matter because like if I don't get enough sleep for a couple of days in a row, I am wrecked. I actually literally have to just like take a day off because I just can't function. So just pacing yourself to just like enjoy yourself and this work, I think is fine, right? Take it easy.
yeah, basically my dad noticed me and then he was like, Revant, it's time to start running. You did like great job for until you were in San Francisco. What happened in New York?
Yeah. We were talking about this, right? It's just like settling in, the Airbnb life. Like, yes, you got busy, but he's right. You gotta get back into the running and everything too.
I love running. I
Yeah.
love running. But within 2 months, I came like, I will show you. And everyone probably not notice.
Too funny, man. But you know what? You're young, man, and you can get back into this. And I hope that today's a little bit of like a reminder
Yeah.
that like when you get back to the East Coast, like, yeah, just go back into the running, the diet, like build more balance. But I'm sure you found yourself lost in founder life in many periods of your life too, right?
Yeah, I agree. Like,
Yeah.
there were several points of time, like, I felt lost and like immediately, like, within 1-2 days, like, I was like, yes, I can do this
Yeah.
game. At the same
Yeah.
time, like, half an hour later, they were like lost for maybe 1-2 hours, and half an hour later, I told you, like, my therapy is running, and there is a really good place near Palo Alto Airport, and that is my favorite place.
Yeah.
Do you check it out?
No.
Yeah.
I hate running personally, but I have my other I like, I have weights here and I
It's a good walking as well.
yeah.
And you could park the car there and take the kids. They
Yeah.
teach birds about birds there.
Oh, cool.
It's like a Lucy Evans like.
Oh, I have been there actually. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, there's something about what I like about your habits because there's something I sense that you're very centered when you get a little bit of nature time.
Yeah.
And I think it was only in the last year or so where I really understood why this is so valuable. I mean, like, look, dude, if we're having this conversation, this conversation should be very interesting. Like, if we did this in like a fancy office, if we did this in the garage, or if we're in the middle of the forest, I actually think that we would have 3 different kinds of conversations. And I would actually challenge to say that the conversation in the forest would be the best. Because like you're humbled by nature. It's beautiful. You see the sounds of nature. You realize like you're reminded that like you're just a small part of this kind of world. I feel like everyone needs that kind of centering. And it sounds like you're really attracted by nature
I love
in your life.
nature.
Yeah.
Like going on hikes. And
Holy man.
sometimes getting lost because I'm bad GPS navigator.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like one more thing I found is like if you go in a car with someone else,
Yes.
and other person actually opens up to you very quite often. So this is like I call it as car therapy. I do it with all my friends.
Including that massive road trip where you like
Yeah.
butted heads with your friends and now you merge like best friends, right?
Yeah, like we are best friends since college,
Yeah.
and but at the same time, like we had like so many fights, and that was like the most aggressive fight. Kind of made us like what we are.
Yeah.
Like we are like just fighting about taking which is a left turn or which is a right turn. So which is a silly thing.
It's great though because like it felt like a level. It's almost like a sibling like safety,
Yeah.
right? Like you can argue really hard with like your family or your closest friends, but then if you make it through, it's just you could do that because you feel comfortable being that kind of vulnerable, right? So that's awesome.
Currently, I have similar to you, like all 3 friends.
Yeah.
Or like sibling, like a
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. It's the best.
Yeah.
Right? Because you could be as embarrassed as you want. You could shit your pants in front of them, whatever. They're still going to be your friends, right?
Yeah.
They're not judging you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They support me a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, no judgment in friendship.
It's the best, right? And I want this for everyone
Yeah.
because I think it's not easy to find
Yeah.
in modern life
No, I
today.
agree with
Yeah.
you. I agree with you. It is a interesting journey. You go with friends as well as like
Totally, man.
you make all the memories.
Yeah. I think that's probably why we get along so well too, Revant. It's just like when I first met you, the immediate thought was like, this is a guy who's very open to vulnerability. Like you start talking about your family, like the interesting like dynamics of your family too, the business, the expectations, your girlfriend,
Yeah.
you know, like you were really keen to listen to like my family dynamics and so forth. But I love that these conversations matter a lot to me. People like you too, man, because like if we just normalize, especially as men,
Yeah.
just like it's we can open up a little bit more. We don't have to like brag in front of each other about whatever. Like we could just be humans, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like all humans need this, but especially like men, like are not as very good about this kind of stuff. Especially Asian men. Especially Asian men, I think are have the hardest time with this stuff. Yeah.
I've seen that little in some of my Asian men friends.
Yeah.
But I have most of Asian women female friends.
Yeah.
They're very open. I'm
Of
like
course, man.
their shopping buddy.
Dude, when you go back to like India or I go back to Korea, like
Yeah.
it's not as easy to find conversations like this, right? And I actually think that's a problem, right? In America, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah. Especially like Indian friends, you don't see that problem, but Indian like relatives or neighbors, you see the judgment coming out of nowhere. I don't know whether it's a care or judgment. I'm like, okay, I don't mind about it.
Yeah.
Do your thing, I'll do my thing kind of situation.
I totally get that, man. I do. But here we are today, right? Hopefully leading through example, right? That 2 dudes can get pretty deep about our values and lives right now.
So
Yeah.
any final message for all investors,
Yeah.
builders, and listeners?
Yeah, man. First of all, big thank you to you, Revant, for coming to my home, bringing all this equipment, planning this big day, flying across the country. it's too much, man. And I really love that you're putting together this podcast. And I do hope that our listeners today can get something out of it. But I guess like the final parting thoughts is just, again, I'm going to reiterate my life's message, which is when you bow to the mirror, the reflected image bows back. And I'll sort of challenge people actually on like something that really has inspired me along these lines, which is many years ago, Barack Obama kind of shared like this music playlist that of like musicians that he's invited to the White House. This is many years ago. And there's this one soul singer. His name is William Bell. I think he's like 80 years old, but he's still producing music. And there's a song that he played in front of the Obama family in this like YouTube video. It's called "The Three of Me." So the main chorus goes as follows. It says, "Last night there was a dream that there were three of me. There's a man I was, the man I am, and the man that I want to be." Okay. And I always thought that's like a really beautiful way of thinking about people. So the man I want to be part of it. Many years ago, I put together this exercise, which is like my personal mission statement of like, what would the ideal version of Eric believe? What are his values and so forth? I actually review it every month for the last like decade. And what I realized was like, when I'm feeling lost about a decision, kind of struggling or something, I just review my personal value statement and try to make a decision based on what the ideal version of Eric will do. Over time, as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that the man I am today, it's slowly getting closer and closer and closer to the man I want to be. And when I live my life by those values, I find that like life gets so simple, right? It's just like, I'm not going to compromise this. I'm just going to live. I'm just going to decide this way, this way, this way. And then it just starts to become more natural. And I really do hope that, some takeaways that your listeners can have is just like, if they can understand what their true values are and just live towards it, and hopefully it's going to be something that's wrapped around like kindness and like giving to others and so forth. It is such a spectacular way to try to live your life, right? And like try to collect human beings like my buddy Ravant here, who also understands this stuff. Because if you just surround yourself with people who do get this, it makes it easier for you to try to pursue this stuff and stay accountable to it too, and remove the toxic ones who aren't really living those values either. Anyway, I'll leave it at that though, but like, thanks for coming into the garage.
Thank you, Eric. The last message also was valuable. Like, I will do monthly the man comparison. The man I was, I want to be, and I am. Previously, I used to do yearly, reaching all the goals. I like your monthly approach. Kind of, I think it is more accurate through time.
Yeah, and then the trick too is also to modify
Yeah.
along the way. Here's a little tip for those who actually do create their own personal mission statement for you and also your listeners. When you make a modification, include an audit log, a history log in the bottom of like, I have modified on this date, like I'm changing these words because I now believe in this. And you can now see a system of record of like the past version of you who's making changes to your values. And that is also really cool too, because you can look back and see like 31-year-old Eric changed it for this reason. Oh, it's because like at that time I had my first kid and realized this thing, like that kind of stuff. It's really cool to see the history of the changes too.
Yeah. It is.
Version control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Version control.
Yeah.
It is very cool to know about it. Like the modify tip is I'm going to update with every one of you guys.
Yeah. There you go.
With you, Eric, as well.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks again, man. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me here as well as in your garage. So thank you.
All right, man. That was a long video. I hope that there's enough for you to get a problem.
It's a lot. I think I need to stop recording.
Yeah, for sure we should.